Human trafficking is a major public threat that is present in all areas around the world. It is most common in the form of sex trafficking, and thousands of people fall victim to this crime every year. Since it has been happening throughout history, it does not generate as much public concern and attention as it should. We will be looking at one specific case with ex-Subway spokesman Jared Fogle. Fogle is facing prison time for his actions and is being charged with child pornography and commercial sex acts with minors. Fogle used his executive director, Russell Taylor, to receive child pornography and meet underage girls for sex. Fogle did not take the usual route of using online sites such as Backpage, where most American victims of human trafficking are bought. In 2012, Backpage had about 1 million ads for prostitution and sex with minors.
84 underage boys and girls forced into prostitution are now safe after a nationwide FBI sting. Operation Cross Country led to the arrest of 120 human traffickers. One of the victims was just 3 months old.
Natalie.
Well, Heather, the Senate report says 73% of all child trafficking reports received by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children involve Backpage. And so far, execs have avoided criminal prosecution and even refused to testify before that Senate subcommittee to avoid self-incrimination. But alleged victims now hope to hit them in the pocketbook.
The selling and shopping happens on places like Backpage, a classified advertising website. It requires users to agree to not post trafficking materials. But on separate pages for Omaha, Lincoln, Grand Island, North Platte, and Scotts Bluff, you'll find dozens of ads for escorts every day.
Backpage is one of the most widely used websites that we came across while I was working at the FBI. The one good thing about Backpage is they do turn over 400 suspected children for sale a month.
One trafficker was arrested after making a deal with an undercover agent to sell a 3-month-old girl and her 5-year-old sister for sex.
Multi-millionaire who made his fortune by being a relatable everyman has become one of the most reviled men in America.
Today, a shocking fall from grace. Fogle agreeing to plead guilty to possessing and distributing child pornography.
Today, Jared Fogle has been charged and has admitted to participating in a 5-year criminal scheme to exploit children.
And that's not all.
Fogle admitted that he repeatedly traveled from Indiana to New York to engage in commercial sex acts with victims he knew to be children.
He had sex with a 17-year-old prostitute at New York's most luxurious hotels, the Plaza and the Ritz-Carlton, and then asked her to find him younger underage girls. Fogle, reportedly worth about $15 million.
He will fully and completely acknowledge his responsibility for his wrongdoing.
Let's call this what it is. This is about using wealth, status, and secrecy to illegally exploit children. The approximate amount of data reviewed includes 159,634 text messages, 27,140 emails, 47,623 images, and 3,394 videos. Through this thorough investigation, 14 victims were identified.
They're literally dealing with a celebrity who had access, power, and resources to do anything he wanted in the world, but he chose to utilize that to cajole, to convince, and even take advantage of children.
For Nightline.
Out of the blue, when we were talking about the kids, and he said that he thought that the middle school girls were hot. It was just something that he really enjoyed, and he trusted me for unknown reasons. And he had said numerous times to me over the course of the years about having sex with minors.
So, Jared Fogle actually talked to you about putting cameras in your child's bedroom?
Yes, I had 2 young children at the time, and he talked to me about installing cameras, hidden cameras in their rooms, and asked me if I would choose which child I would like him to watch.
The streets. And John, I mean, the scope of this whole thing, 14 victims, multiple states.
And here's a guy that has his own foundation And the executive director of that foundation, police alleged this guy, Russell Taylor, the executive director of this foundation, secretly videotaped children that came to his house, maybe children that he was working at the foundation. And these guys literally shared thousands. Now, they said that they have over 3,000 videos. They shared thousands of pictures of children either Jared molested or that this guy secretly videotaped in his home or motel rooms where he was with children, maybe children that were being helped by this foundation. We don't know that yet. But, you know, they just look like everybody else, and you really have to have your radar up.
As you can see, the media and news focused mainly on the actions Fogel committed, the empire he had to lose, and what his punishment was. The news media did not address the other half of the story. The girls he took advantage of, the girls that he affected forever, were forgotten and disregarded completely, being known just as a number. Hearing stories from the victims is more moving and intimate than the headlines about the next male predator who used power to exploit and abuse vulnerable members of society. The public would have a higher concern for this issue if the news featured the stories of all victims rescued from human trafficking rings every night, just like the nightly stories of the most recent terrorist attacks.
About the worst form of human rights violation, the third largest organized crime, a $10 billion industry. I'm talking to you about a modern-day slavery. I'd like to tell you the story of these 3 children. So she sold 4-year-old Pranita to a broker. By the time we got the information, we reached there, Pranita was already raped by 3 men. Shaheen's background I don't even know. We found her in a railway track, raped by many, many men, I don't know how many, but the indications of that on her body was that her intestine was outside her body. And when we took her to the hospital, she needed 32 stitches to put back her intestine into her body. We still don't know who her parents are, who she is. All that we know, that hundreds of men had used her brutally. Anjali's father, a drunkard, sold his child for pornography. I work on the issue of commercial sexual exploitation, and I tell you stories from there. My own journey to work with these children started as a teenager. I was 15 when I was gang raped by 8 men.
Miss Jessa, and I'm a survivor of human trafficking. So when I was a little girl, my family was part of a group of people that severely sexually abused me, and that sexual abuse turned into me posing for pornographers and doing sex acts for the cameras and being raped in front of the cameras. And then that turned into me being sold to different pimps, and then me being sold to friends, and those friends doing whatever they wanted to do. It was taking place in suburban neighborhoods. I was also taken into a few other countries for the sole purpose of being trafficked and being sold. That was just my reality of cities and places. This is not who you are. People cannot define who you are, especially sex cannot define who you are. And you are so much more than this. And then she told me that I could make a choice, and she told me I could make the choice to leave. For me, it was a long struggle of me in my mind having to redefine what was happening to me, realizing that this was wrong, realizing this is not normal, realizing that this is not okay. Then it was the courage for me to say, this stops, and this stops now. And I remember kissing some of my siblings goodbye and just walking away. A woman approached me, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "Oh, I think you've been abused. I can see abuse written on your face." She told me that she wanted to be my mom, and she told me that she has a lot of houses of girls like me, and she wanted to take care of me. And I'm like, oh wow, I have somebody to help me. I have somebody here that I can look to and can trust. When I got to her apartment, though, that's when things changed, and that's when things shifted, and that's when she told me that I was going to have to work for her. Because of my past abuse and because of my past trauma, I was just so vulnerable to people taking advantage of me again. And that then instilled in me the message, what's wrong with me? What have I done? I must be just this way, and this is who I am, and so it's okay for people to use me all the time because that's the way I am. And after that second trafficking experience, it was almost impossible for me to trust anyone. That someday I'm going to get my doctorate in clinical psychology to work with people who have experienced complex trauma and PTSD to give them the hope in the future that I've been given.
Telling you that this person whom you see in front of you was abused as a child. His dreams were ripped apart and his body was raped. At the age of 7, I knew the taste of semen. My abuser was around a 30-year-old. And he abused me for 11 years. Accept what happened and park your past in the past and lead your life in the present.